My guest today is Lawry di Bivort, who is a part-time Telluride resident of about 20 years and a speaker at the library this week.
Yeah.
So let's talk first before we talk about what you're speaking about, because it's a very interesting seminar you're giving. But let's talk about your relationship with Telluride and what brought you here. I didn't, forgive me, you've been here for 20 years. I've been here for almost that much, and I don't think we've met.
No, I'm too serious. You know, I try and hew to the skiing and the Festival of High Intellect that occurs once a year.
I don't get invited to the Festival of High Intellect.
Oh, well, you know, we'll remedy that.
We'll fix
that.
that.
But you've got to be serious, you know. I mean, it's, the demeanors, it's all in the demeanor.
I'm working on that.
All right. That's good. It's good.
How's this?
Yeah.
So on a serious note,
yeah.
What is it that you do?
Well, good question. My mother asked me that. You know, she wants a title like doctor or
Something
lawyer.
she can tell her friends.
Right.
Yeah.
And the fact is that I'm just sort of a roving guy who butts into all kinds of issues and offers opinions, and enough people find those opinions to be of value that they sometimes pay me.
Well, not just some people actually find them, but people in Washington, very important people, actually find value in your ideas and opinions. Am I putting
Sometimes.
a judgment on who these people are?
Yeah, I don't know which to quibble with first, but some do.
But
and
what is it
others think that I'm, you know, insufficiently aggressive and nasty, and I mean insufficiently patriotic. No, that's not the word. Insufficiently something.
I can feel this aggression right here.
Yeah, I'm struggling.
This is very intense. But what is it? What do you call your field? This is about human thought, right? And the human brain and language and.
Okay, well, fundamentally, what I'm interested in is how human systems perform. So that can be an individual or a family or an organization or a society, a nation, a culture, international systems, and the species as a whole. And what I've come to realize is that the dynamics that inform what each level of these systems do are the same level to level. It becomes larger, more complex as you get to bigger and bigger systems, but the dynamics that control their behavior and the thinking that goes into controlling their behavior is the same at each level. So what I've done is learn how to understand those systems at each one of those levels, and then learn how to do interventions in those systems so that they begin to think differently, they begin to act differently, make different judgments, make different kinds of decisions.
Is it possible to change people's thinking in other parts of the world? And
Sure, it is. You know, people around the world have much more in common than they do in difference. And it's only what you're referring to earlier about brains and changing brains. We have inherited from an evolutionary past a series of cognitive patterns that are in fact dysfunctional, that are in fact, I call them mistakes.
So where do we get these?
Like tribalism would be one, with attendant racism, reductionism, superstition.
So these ideas, these fears, these hatreds, whatever you call them, these are mistakes. These aren't part of being human necessarily.
Well, they're part of being human as we now are, but my hope is that we can begin to retrain our brains so that we don't make those kinds of silly, unnecessary, and highly destructive mistakes. So that's what I mean by managing what our brains do. And you're right to point out that the state of the world is in disarray. You know, one could, in about 5 minutes, write down 100 different significant crises. But I believe that in part we have these crises because of the operations of these cognitive mistakes on the one hand, and also another thing, mentioning it for the first time right now, our building of immensely complex and powerful systems. And by that I mean like our communication system, our financial systems, educational systems, energy and so forth. We have built these huge processes that are designed to provide us with services, but there's a Faustian bargain involved. We have to accept the limitations of those systems. So we complain about how these different systems don't actually do everything that we want, but we have come to depend on them.
Systems and the government and the internet, things that we don't like, and yet we do depend on them.
We depend on them to the point where if you imagined all these systems going away, you'd have to wonder how many people would actually survive. I don't think it'd be a lot. But these systems are now so large that it's very hard to change them. No single brain can understand the complexity of these systems. So when you want to improve a system, update it, it's immensely costly and time-consuming, and you may not get it right. So Microsoft keeps putting out new editions of their operating system that nobody likes. It's not because the people at Microsoft are stupid. It's the complexity that they're dealing with is such they can't anticipate all the ways it's not going to work. So if we have become dependent on systems that now dominate us, the question is, are we still free to make the range of choices that are going to be needed if we're going to learn how to manage our own evolution? Or have we locked ourselves into mediocre, overly complex, very hard to change systems? And have we signed away a glorious future for our species? And I don't know what the answer is, but generally I'm optimistic. The very fact that we can be talking about these things and it sort of makes sense, to me is a reason for being optimistic. And I've traveled all over the world, and I find interest in this all over the world. This is not, an American phenomenon, interest in these kinds of questions.
Well, can I just say you're blowing my mind?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what that means. Is that good?
It's good.
Oh, okay.
I think it means just the idea of new thoughts and new possibilities, and things. Maybe that's part of learning how to think in a new way.
Well, it's amazing, when you think of evolution, natural evolution, which I think of as like operating system 1.x, it has worked through mutation and survival of the fittest. It takes a long, long time, and it's totally inefficient and does a whole bunch of experiments that don't go anywhere. But you've got to say it's brought us to where we are. The fact that we have the language to be able to talk about these things and the brains that are capable of beginning to get a grip on them is pretty amazing. And so I think now it's up to us to create operating system 2.0 for the human species, which will be the new ways in which we begin to manage our own evolution. But we've got to create those, and that's going to be a huge undertaking, with hundreds of thousands of people involved one way or another in designing.
Well, I think a good place to start would be the library.
In what sense?
Next week.
Oh, yeah.
The Wednesday talk.
Wednesday
final of the
is
three.
27th, I believe,
Yep.
at 6 o'clock at the library.
And the title of the talk is?
This one will be on the cognitive mistakes of Homo sapiens and what we need to learn to be able to manage our brains effectively.
See, so if you're looking for some light entertainment,
Yeah.
show up at the library.
Yeah.
Lawry, thank you so much for talking to us.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yes.
I enjoyed it.
And look for him up on the slopes as well.
Yes.
What color jacket do you have?
It's sort of black with green and yellow. It's a one-piece.
Oh, you wear a one-piece.
A one-piece, and I'll be in the trees, like between Macomb and Mammoth, or Jack's, what's it called, Captain Jack's, and on 9 mostly.
Beautiful. So you can be smart and you can be a good skier. There you have it.
Well, I think I'm a pretty good skier. I don't know about the rest.
About the smart part. Anyway, we're going to take a look at the weather, find out what it's doing when you're up on the mountain, in between Macomb and Mammoth, in the trees, looking for Lawry di Bivort.
Okay.
Thanks again.
My pleasure. Thank you.